They agreed that the United States and China should build a constructive relationship of strategic stability based on fairness and reciprocity, reaffirming that while our nations will vigorously protect our respective interests, we can secure practical, mutually beneficial agreements where our interests align. When we look across the region today, there is rightful alarm regarding China's historic military buildup and the expansion of its military activities in the region and beyond. We share a clear-eyed assessment of that security environment and a mutual understanding that a Pacific dominated by any hegemon would unravel the regional balance of power and undermine the equilibrium we all seek to preserve. The policy we have on Taiwan is the same as it was at the beginning of this administration. The only change you might see is how we talk about the entirety of it. What I talked about today was strong, quiet, but clear, and ensuring our allies know precisely where we stand, whether it's open in public or behind closed doors, and that's why these meetings have been so important. But our stance on Taiwan remains unchanged, just as the President said when we came out of those historic meetings with China, and I think we're as in strong of a position as we've ever been in the Pacific and around the world.
The acting Secretary of the Navy said that the 14 billion FMS to Taiwan had been paused to preserve stocks for Epic Fury. How do you reconcile that with expedited arms sales for partners?
On the Taiwan arms sales, I would very much decouple the two, and we feel very good about our stockpiles, both how we use them and in Epic Fury in this historic moment. Our ability to recommence if necessary is we are more than capable. Our stockpiles are more than suited for that, both there and around the globe, because of how we balance exquisite and more plentiful munitions. So we're in a very good place. Hung Kao is fantastic, but I would not couple the two in any way at all. And I feel good about not only where we are in future production rates as well. And I think there's been a lot of false reporting with the wrong motives about where we might be, the United States of America. And we're in a very, very strong position and feel only better about where we're going in the future. Any decision about future Taiwan arms sales, as the President said, will rest with him and as a nature of that relationship. And certainly having been there for those meetings in Beijing, there's no change in our status there. So just to clarify.
年度军事外交重头戏香格里拉对话在新加坡登场。那美国战争部长赫格塞斯在演说中大打大棒外交，那强调美国呢清楚中国正在进行重大的军事扩张，华府也确保为了可能的突发情况做好了准备，重申美国对台立场是没有改变。
美国战争部长赫格塞斯远赴新加坡出席香格里拉对话，30号开场直击印太核心，再度对中国的军事扩张敲响警钟。
When we look across the region today, there is rightful alarm regarding China's historic military buildup.
赫格塞斯强调，没有任何单一国家能被允许建立区域霸权，进而威胁美国及盟友安全。他同时强力呼吁亚洲盟邦应将军费提高至 GDP 的 3.5%， 以实质力量嚇阻中国扩张。
We're going to be strong, but we can speak softly while carrying that big stick and be very clear about the fact that there are places where we can work together with China.
言下之意，美国软硬兼施，在尊重中国野心的同时，也将其纳入战略考量，随时为任何可能的突发状况做好准备。
Our stance on Taiwan remains unchanged, just as the President said when we came out of those historic meetings with China, and I think we're as in strong of a position as we've ever been in the Pacific and around the world.
赫格塞斯同时澄清外界传言暂缓对台军售与美军弹药是否充足无关，强调一切权限将交由川普定夺。而澳洲国防部长更罕见以台湾海峡的海缆破坏事件向各国提出严正警告。
In the subsea domain, which is exposed to a new vector of coercion that undermines the security of sovereign states.
地缘政治风起云涌，菲律宾防长受访直言，若台湾爆发潜在冲突，菲律宾愿意开放北部区域作为避风港。另一边，日本、纽西兰及澳洲防长也在场边举行3边会谈，磋商日本最上级护卫舰出口合作，全面打造坚实的印太防卫阵线，防堵中国威胁。三立新闻杨俊宗报道。
I think our message today was very much in sync with precisely where the President wants to go, which is we're going to be strong, but we can speak softly while carrying that big stick and be very clear about the fact that there are places where we can work together with China. We respect their ambitions. We know that they have a significant military buildup. That comes with considerations we have to take as a sovereign nation to ensure that we're prepared for any possible contingency. And at the same time, our position hasn't changed on Taiwan. I said that publicly in my remarks today. That was, but to have an opportunity with another global power to meet in person as she and President Trump did, I think is precisely what the world would want to see, right? Is those two nations like that coming together to deconflict and to converse about the issues of the day is important. It doesn't necessarily signal a sea change in those relations or how they see the world, and that's what the president said also. But it's what I think everyone would like to see in that context.
Secretary, you mentioned.
Go ahead.
Thank you. What will you and the president need to see in order to, from Iran's nuclear program, in order to finalize the deal and open the Strait of Hormuz?
Ultimately, like I said, any deal that the president is willing to make, he's only going to make it if he believes it's a great deal for our country and the security of the world. And only one president was willing to lay it out on the line and ensure after 47 years that Iran is not capable of having a nuclear weapon. And so you saw it in how he's been talking about it publicly. Those goalposts haven't shifted at all, which is the expectation of the American people and what we've stated to Iran. So in the middle of negotiations, the closer they come to that reality, both now and into the future, the closer we're going to get to that kind of a deal. And I also, having been in the room with him, I know he means it when he looks in the camera in the cabinet room and said they can either do this now through a deal, and we think we're in a good place to make that deal, or they can deal with the War Department. And we are prepared. We're postured even stronger today than we were on day one to address it that way if we have to, but he'd prefer not to. So Iran knows very, very clearly what our expectations are, and that's on the negotiating team to deliver. They're coming in our direction. The talks have been productive. I think they know where it needs to go, and I'm quite confident with our president who makes nothing but great deals, that ultimately it'll be something he's proud to defend, that ensures that Iran, which everyone knows should not have a nuclear weapon, never does.
Secretary, on drones.
Yeah.
One more question. Do you think that the U.S. and China need to set a mutually agreed upon guardrail or standard on AI? And did you see any progress towards that when you were in Beijing?
There were good, productive conversations about that. I think the agreement was that we should keep talking about it to ensure that as that technology develops, you got two things. You want to be able to set guardrails, but given the innovation capabilities of the United States of America, we also want to maintain an advantage and ensure that we can utilize that advantage responsibly as well. So it's kind of it's emblematic of that competing tension. Guardrails, conversations are productive between two strong countries, but it's also our job to run the fastest. And certainly at the War Department, we're trying to do everything we can to maintain that advantage.
You took notes on allies against China in your remarks this morning, which President Trump told you to go forward with that more. Did you meet with your counterpart one-on-one when you were in Beijing, and what sort of interactions and communications are you hoping to facilitate in the future?
I did get a chance to meet with my counterpart in Beijing multiple times. In fact, sat next to him during a dinner, and we had a previous couple of meetings, and so it was an opportunity to deepen that. Unfortunately, he wasn't here at that level at Shangri-La, but I anticipate future, and we've set in place more regular rhythms for mill-to-mill contact, because it's not just the high-profile settings, it's the month-to-month basis where you're talking about, whether it's in the Pacific or elsewhere, what they're doing, what we're doing, what it really means, and how we deconflict. That I think is going to matter the most, and that's the expectation of our leadership. Is hey, we're starting a new chapter, which is more collaborative, and at the mill-to-mill level, our job is to make sure we facilitate that interaction as much as possible.
Secretary, when it comes to drones, thank you so much. So the U.S. expects to make about 300,000 drones by 2027. Right now, Ukraine, it's estimated, makes between 10 and 20,000 a day. So my questions are, what are we learning from Ukraine, and how are we putting that into practice? And then the second is, Zelensky is asking the United States to expand deliveries of Patriot missiles, those missile systems, to defend against Russia. Will the U.S. be doing that?
Well, what you'll see in President Trump's 2027 budget is $56 billion in investment in drone dominance. We continue to learn from what Ukraine has done on the battlefield. It's not about having the exquisite systems, it's the ability to scale it quickly while adapting week after week. I mean, that's how quickly drone technology adapts. But given we have to do both, have the exquisite systems that can do what only America can do on autonomy, but also that attritable component, which has been so effective on both sides. But we've learned so much from Ukraine and how they operate. So it is an absolute focus of where we're going. We intend to not only be at parity, but the best in the world at it. I think you'll see from our department that kind of investment going forward. What was your second question again?
Zelensky is asking the U.S.
Oh, I mean,
Patriot missile.
listen, we're changing the way we make all those types of important munitions to ensure that our companies are delivering not just a little bit more, but a lot of bit more across the spectrum. Where we can help Ukraine, we have. Where we can enable Europe to do more, we have. And I'm encouraged by the European commitment. If you look at the amount of money that's been spent, Europe has stepped up, and Ukraine has been just as, if not more, effective in the process. So we want them to be able to defend, and we'll find a way to make sure we can help them.
So if allies in the Indo-Pacific significantly step up their defense spending, can the U.S. industrial base keep up and deliver the capabilities and systems that they would need in timelines required?
That's our job. That's, I'd say, one of the biggest parts of my job that is hidden from public sight. How do we ensure that our defense industrial base is supercharged? That's why we talk about it every day. That's why our budget reflects a fundamental change in how we build out our manufacturing base. That's why we're asking companies to invest in new plants, new equipment, new production lines, and we're giving them order times so they know, hey, for the next 5 to 7 years, I'm going to be making PAC-3s. I'm going to be making Tomahawks. I'm going to be making THAADs. And so I will invest in new plants, which is American jobs and American investments. So now it's not just another additional 100 a year. It's 3,000 more a year or 6,000 more a year of any of those. Now it's not just our needs for our operational plans, but it's our allies out here who are counting on us. And then when we do that, we can point back at them and say, now, here's where we can co-produce. You're a rich country who has the ability to make more in the defense space. Partner with us in order to do that. In fact, that was some of the conversations we just had. We're on ramping up those types of munitions so our partners have them, but also they can feed them back at us. And we've got even more capabilities.
How much did the Strait of Hormuz come up in Iran in your conversations with these leaders over the past, 48 hours or so? If there's an impact on this region because of that. Even the Vietnamese leader said that it was a flashpoint that could throw the rest of the world into turmoil. Did you discuss that with them, and is that blockade still in place there?
The blockade is very much still in place, and the Strait of Hormuz came up relatively often, and usually once we talked through it, countries were reassured that the American perspective accounted for that, which it did from the beginning, and that also our view toward energy, I think, will reshape the global map. And the president has talked about whether it's Texas or Venezuela or energy production, how the future in energy is actually an American future. And that's good for energy security around the world. In the meantime, I believe not just what we're able to do and are doing, whether it's known or unknown in the Strait, but also other countries putting pressure on Iran. Once a deal is had, or not, depending on the choice they made, it will be a open strait, a toll-free strait that the entire world can use, which is the way that it should be. Anything else? Yes.
Yes, the president previously called for Australia's help reopening the Strait of Hormuz. Did that come up in your conversations with your Australian counterpart today? Is Washington still looking for Australia's help there?
Australia, when we've called Australia in this context, they've been willing to help with whatever assets they can provide, and we're grateful for that. It's in keeping with how Australia has been a strong partner of ours. The bulk of the weight has been an American effort, especially on the blockade, which has been ironclad, and frankly has put the real pressure on Iran. They want to say that they control the strait, but we do. And everything behind the scenes shows that we are in control when it comes to that, including how the dynamics of the negotiation are coming together. But we appreciate the support they're providing. I think the meetings we had on AUKUS today and other arrangements, especially in the Pacific, show that our alliance is as strong as it's ever been.
On AUKUS, Mr. Secretary, you announced a new plan today for those underwater drones. But in Australia, it's another part of the AUKUS deal that has been in focus lately, those Virginia-class submarines.
Yeah.
Is the US committed to providing those subs on time? Can Australia count on the US for that?
I think they can. And that's why we did the review the way that we did, is to ensure that what we're promising is aligned with what we're able to do. And previous administrations have not put enough emphasis on our defense industrial base or our shipbuilding industrial base. And our budget, which we believe we will get, and we're laser focused on making sure it happens, invests in American capabilities, American jobs that will deliver our ability to project those subs, but also provide inside this arrangement. But it's mutually beneficial. Those subs, obviously, in the hands of Australia are important for your defense, but they also add to the combined defense of what we would need to do. Heaven forbid there were a contingency. Just a couple more questions.
Hurst has mentioned in congressional testimony recently that when we're talking about funding, supplemental funding from the Iran war for base reconstruction and repair, that it would depend on force structure and needs and what that looks like. Is there consideration or discussion about permanently moving U.S. forces out of some of those bases that were hit during the war and not repairing them?
This will all be President Trump's decision, depending on what direction we want to go. We feel good about the partnerships we've had in the region. Those decisions will be made given the outcome. I mean, right now we're focused on being postured and prepared to re-engage if we have to. I mean, this is a high stakes negotiation. We've got the best negotiator in the world leading it. Iran may not want to give up their nuclear ambitions, but we believe at the table they can and will over time, given the right set of incentives. But the most powerful incentive is the capabilities we have there right now, which they can't ultimately defend against at any real level. And those are decisions in the future the president will make based on how this ends. But I feel confident that he'll get to a deal that serves the interests of the American people. Last question here.
Biden had said that U.S. policy was to defend Taiwan. Has U.S. policy on Taiwan changed at all under the Trump administration?
The policy we have on Taiwan is the same as it was at the beginning of this administration. The only change you might see is how we talk about the entirety of it. What I talked about today was strong, quiet, but clear, in ensuring our allies know precisely where we stand, whether it's open in public or behind closed doors, and that's why these meetings have been so important. But our stance on Taiwan remains unchanged, just as the president said when we came out of those historic meetings with China. And I think we're as in strong of a position as we've ever been in the Pacific and around the world. So thank you very much. Appreciate it.
你觉得我
喜欢你。不是这样的，不是这样的。
你觉得我怎么 cue 你比较好？
我喜欢你的手势很清楚。很多片段都是被刻意的断章取义，先别急着当真。
买葱5折买菜头哦！
哇，他说买葱送菜头哎，
真的假的？没急哦，不是5折了。讯息传到手中，真相就被打折。
原来这就是财富自由的感觉啊！
先生，你拿人家厕所的马桶盖干什么？这很贵啊！
拍谁阿姨？拍谁？角度抓得好，马桶盖也能变机舱。凡事不要只看局部，才不会被太空架。
真是有道理，我来告诉你。
是真是假，有道理没道理，来这里聊。